Every semester definitely has its own quality. First semester, first year, there is a certain sense of like electricity in the air and within yourself because you've just left everything with the understanding that a lot of people may not understand why you just left everything. And you're with people now that have done the same thing. And so immediately there is a sense of fellowship among these people. And then there's the sense of being here, which is incredible in its own way.
You kind of are seemingly plopped down in this little isolated bubble of orthodoxy here because you kind of have to have this like protected experience, I think, where you can kind of separate from the world a little bit, separate from the distractions of your life that you had before coming, and you are faced with yourself. And then you realize, okay, I have some work to do.
There is this direct engagement with the life of the church. It's all kind of laid out right in front of you. So the focus is very clear. You're here for a very specific reason. And in some ways, there's no hiding from it. And that causes quite a bit of introspection. But with that came many rewards. You start to realize once I engage this life to this degree, the fruits are abundant, and it's incredible. So there's so much anticipation, so much excitement.
He's always been very serious about his faith, and he's been prayerful for as long as I've known him, but he's matured so much in this context. It's really encouraging to see that just be so nurtured.
You hear people say things like, well, you're going to seminary, so you're going to be a priest, huh? You know, and part of you says, yeah, I think so. You know, I think that's where I'm headed. The other part of you, the other part of me, understands that, well, that's not necessarily the case. It's not a one-to-one relationship. There's a lot that has to happen before that happens. And I think that's the reality of seminary.
Being here, you're so immersed and you're just soaking in the presence of God here. I mean, you're soaking it all in, and it becomes a part of you, and then that's what you want for your life.
You start seeing how the Lord opens up paths for you to come here. He opens up paths for you to remain here. Then it becomes less a matter of, well, yes, I want to be a priest. And it becomes more a matter of the Lord is opening up doors for me to become a priest, and I need to really consider that. And I think that's the most powerful, one of the most powerful things that has ever happened to me in my life is to kind of have that switch, that change of well, when did you know? When did you become this? When did you become that? And what made you decide to do seminary? What made you decide to become a priest? And you start to see, well, it's not so much on my end as much I participate in that, but it's trying to be obedient to the Lord's will.
To watch your husband walk out with the air over his head is extremely powerful. He's a sacrifice, you know? He's sacrificing his life for the ministry of the church and for God's will, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
in some ways it's just really hard to talk about because it's a very personal encounter with the Lord, and every liturgy is like that. But as someone who's to be ordained, your place in that liturgy is a bit different. The mystery is really a mystery in how all of a sudden you're placed within these movements. You're getting integrated into this mystery. You're getting integrated into God being made even more tangible for his people in the Eucharist.
Well, I haven't been a Matushka for very long, but I have had a handful of people ask me, how does it feel to be a priest's wife? And it's amazing to me to answer and say that it feels really natural. And it feels like an honor and a blessing, and which is a miracle, I think, that I can say that now, because it wasn't what I expected for our life. You know, I think it's easy to be nervous of like losing yourself or something, coming from the world, coming in and you think, oh, is there like a certain type of Matushka? Is there a certain way to be a Matushka? But God honors our individuality, and everyone is still themselves, and you are the Matushka you're going to be. You have to be honest with who you are, but honest in the presence of God.
A woman in our parish came up to me after the ordination at the banquet and said, 3 years ago, you were standing there reading the post-communion prayers, and then today, you were just 3 steps over to the left, reading the prayers at the end of the liturgy. The prayers that the new priest, it's his first public prayers, read out loud. And she said, I thought to myself, wow, it's only 3 steps over, but so much has happened. And I was so moved by that, because she was really processing something that, like, she was really catching on to something that I was experiencing. It's a true image of Christian unity and fellowship among our people, is to see that concern and to see that thoughtfulness.
What's been incredible is seeing the kids have their point of reference be the church.
They're surrounded by all these other kids, and they're outside, and they get to do all these great activities, and it's just this really special time for the children, I think, that we're so thankful for.
I mean, there's challenges, obviously. There's challenges, but God's grace gets you through. And I feel like we've experienced that here too. And so going forward with our next steps into a parish, I'm just going to really protect this time, this experience, and hold it really close to my heart and keep it there as long as I can and nourish it, because I think it's very clear that it's given me strength now to move forward.
But I think for someone who's considering seminary, it's very easy to get caught up in our own narrative about who I am, what my history is, how that might be beneficial or an impediment for me to moving forward, and then we start depending on this narrative. And I think there's some problems with that. But if we don't do it alone, which of course would look like speaking with our priest, speaking with our spouse, then we start to get a perspective that is probably a little bit more reliable. Our narrative is not necessarily the Lord's narrative. So when we're ready, when we're not ready, that may not be how the Lord is helping things unfold. So I think it's best to just be very attentive to what is happening in our life, understanding that there's a lot of different ways that one approaches seminary, that one comes to seminary, and that one can remain at seminary, there's just different ways that it happens, and we have to be very open to that, and we have to be open to those around us to help us understand God's will.